Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into some tech that's a little off the beaten path.
Always up for an adventure.
Okay, so today we're taking a look at the HTC U20 5G.
U20?
Yeah, it's a phone that you might not have even heard of. And we're going to be using a review from RechargeMyTopup.com to help us figure out, what this phone is all about.
Sounds intriguing.
Is it a hidden gem or just another phone that got lost in the shuffle?
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. The first thing that jumped out at me was the display. This phone has a 6.8-inch screen.
Whoa, that's huge.
I know, right? I mean, that's practically a tablet. But here's the thing. It's an LCD screen, not AMOLED.
Really? Most phones in this price range are going with AMOLED these days.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes you wonder, why did HTC make that choice?
Could it be because LCD is usually better for battery life?
That's a good point. Maybe they were prioritizing battery life over having the absolute most vibrant colors. I mean, think about it. If you're using your phone all day for navigation, for taking pictures, for, watching videos, having that extra battery life could be a big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think? Would you be willing to trade a little bit of color vibrancy for a longer lasting battery?
I think, for me, personally, battery life is a huge factor. So, yeah, I'd probably be okay with that trade-off.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's move on to the brains of the operation.
Right.
The HTC U20 5G runs on a Snapdragon 765G processor. Now, I'm not the most tech-savvy person.
All right, I gotcha.
Can you explain what that actually means for the average person who's using their phone for everyday stuff?
Sure. So think of the processor as the engine of the phone. The 765G is a solid mid-range chip. It'll give you smooth scrolling, quick app loading, all that good stuff.
Okay, so it's not going to be like the fastest phone on the market.
Right. It's not meant for heavy-duty gaming or anything, but for most people's daily needs, it's more than enough.
Okay, so it's a workhorse, not a racehorse. Got it. Now let's talk cameras, because this is where things get really interesting. The HTC U20 5G has a quad camera setup on the back.
Wow, quad camera. That's a lot of cameras.
It is a lot of cameras. So we've got a 38MP main lens, an 8MP ultra-wide lens, a 2MP macro lens, and a 2MP depth sensor. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's a lot of lenses.
I have to ask, what's the deal with the macro lens? I feel like that's not something you see on every phone.
So the macro lens is all about getting those super close-up shots. Think like the details on a flower petal or the texture of, a piece of wood.
Oh, wow.
It lets you capture those tiny details that you would normally miss.
That's actually really cool. I'm already thinking about all the creative things you could do with that.
Right. It opens up a whole new world of photography.
And then you've got the depth sensor so you can play around with those portrait mode shots, where the background is all blurry.
Exactly. It's a pretty versatile camera setup overall.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they were going for versatility here. And let's not forget about the selfie camera. A 32MP front-facing camera, that's not too shabby.
Nope, that's pretty impressive.
They definitely want you to be ready for those Instagram moments. But there's something else about this phone that I found really interesting. It's the audio technology.
Oh, yeah.
They have this thing called Usonic technology. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit confused. What is that exactly?
So Usonic actually uses sonar to map the shape of your ear canal.
Wait, sonar? Like the same technology that's used to, find submarines?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why.
I know, right? It's pretty innovative. And then the phone customizes the sound based on that map.
So it's basically creating a personalized sound profile for your ears.
Exactly. It's all about delivering the best possible audio experience for you.
Wow. So is this the future of headphones? Or are we all going to be getting our ears sonically mapped from now on?
It's definitely an interesting development. But they didn't just stop there. They also included BoomSound hi-fi dual speakers on this phone. So even if you're not using headphones, you're still getting really great sound.
Okay, so even if the sonar thing is a bit much for some people, you're still covered. All right, let's talk battery life. With all these features, I'm hoping the battery can keep up.
You're in luck. The HTC U20 5G has a 5,000 milliamp battery.
5,000 milliamp. That's pretty big, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty massive battery, much bigger than a lot of other phones in this category. You should easily be able to get through a full day of use, even if you're using it a lot.
Okay, that's reassuring. Nobody wants to be tethered to a charger all the time.
All right.
Now let's address the elephant in the room, 5G. I mean, is it really a big deal? Is this something you actually need in the phone right now?
That's a good question. It really depends on where you live and how you use your phone. 5G is still being rolled out in a lot of places, so the coverage isn't great everywhere yet.
Yeah, that's true.
But You know, if you're in an area with good 5G coverage, you will definitely notice the difference. Things like downloads will be faster, streaming will be smoother.
So it's kind of like a nice bonus if you can get it, but not necessarily a deal breaker if you can't.
Exactly. It's something to keep in mind, but it shouldn't be the only factor in your decision.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what the HTC U20 5G is missing. Anything that stands out to you?
Well, one thing to note is that it doesn't have a water and dust resistance rating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of phones in this price range do offer at least some level of protection, so that could be a drawback for some people.
Yeah, for sure, especially if you're someone who's like prone to spills or likes to use their phone in all kinds of weather.
Exactly.
And here's another potential hurdle: availability. It seems like the HTC U20 5G is mainly sold in Taiwan and a few other Asian markets.
That's right. So if you're outside of those markets, it might be a little bit tricky to get your hands on one.
Yeah, you might have to jump through some hoops. And that kind of brings up an interesting question. In a world where there are so many phones that are so easy to get, does a phone with unique features but limited availability become more appealing?
That's a good question. It's almost like the exclusivity factor makes it more desirable.
Yeah. It's like finding a hidden treasure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen the HTC U20 5G's strengths, like the big battery and that really interesting camera setup.
Yeah, it's definitely got some unique features.
And we've also talked about some of its weaknesses, like the lack of water resistance and the limited availability. So the big question is this phone for you? We've given you the information. Now it's time to decide. We'll continue our deep dive into the HTC U20 5G after a short break.
Stay tuned. You know, it's funny, this phone, it really makes you think about who exactly is it for.
Right. Like it's not trying to be like the phone for everyone.
Yeah, it's like they had a very specific person in mind.
Yeah. So let's play a little game.
Okay.
Who do you think is like the ideal user for this phone?
Okay, let's see.
I'm picturing someone who loves taking pictures, but like they're not satisfied with just like, you know, the basic landscape or portrait shots.
Right.
They're intrigued by that macro lens.
Oh, yes.
You know, like being able to capture those little worlds.
The tiny details.
Tiny details. Yeah, exactly. Like maybe they're into nature photography or like close-up shots of like everyday objects.
I love that. And I also think that they really value good sound quality, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like they're always listening to music or podcasts.
Totally.
And they want a phone that can really deliver that, you know, rich, immersive audio experience.
I bet they're really curious about that Usonic technology.
Oh, yeah. Definitely wants to try that out. See if it lives up to the hype.
Yeah. And they're probably not like a hardcore mobile gamer, but they still want a phone that can handle, you know, everyday tasks without any problems.
Right. Like they're comfortable with technology, but they're not chasing after the latest and greatest specs.
Exactly.
It's more about functionality.
Yeah. And I can see them as someone who like does their research, reads reviews, and makes informed decisions about their tech.
Right. They're not just buying whatever's, you know, trendy. They're thinking about it.
Yeah. They're not afraid to be a little different.
Right. Exactly.
So to sum it up, the ideal HTC U20 5G user is a bit of a maverick.
A little bit. Yeah.
An independent thinker who values quality and functionality and maybe just like a touch of individuality.
Absolutely. So now let's flip the script.
Okay.
Who do we think would not be a good fit for this phone?
Ooh. Okay.
So
I think if you are someone who is very clumsy and drops their phone a lot, this is probably not the phone for you.
yeah, especially with that lack of water resistance.
Right, exactly. Or if you need like the absolute fastest processing power for like, you know, demanding games or like video editing.
Yeah, the U25G might not be the best choice for that.
Yeah, and maybe someone who's like super invested in a particular brand ecosystem.
Yeah, like Apple or Samsung.
Yeah, you might not want to switch to a phone that has, you know, limited app support.
Right. And let's be honest, if you're just using your phone for like texting, calling social media,
Yeah.
the U25G is probably overkill.
You could probably find a much more affordable phone
Exactly. There are other options out there.
that can handle those needs just fine.
So it really comes down to knowing your needs and priorities.
Absolutely. Not every phone is for everyone, and that's okay.
Right. The important thing is to find a phone that fits your lifestyle and enhances your daily experiences.
I love that. So as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I want to pose a question to you listening.
Yeah, what do you think?
Does the HTC U25G spark your curiosity?
Does it sound like a phone you'd want to learn more about?
We've given you all the information and the insights, and now it's your turn to decide.
What do you think?
We'll be back after a short break to continue our exploration of the HTC U20 5G.
It's kind of funny. Talking about this phone, it makes me think about just the smartphone market in general.
Oh, yeah.
It's like everybody's just chasing the same specs, you know? The same features.
And it's so easy to get caught up in all the hype.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes it feels like every phone is just like a slightly faster version of the one that came before it.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to forget that a phone is like more than just a list of specs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool that we use to like, connect with people and capture memories and, experience the world.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's about finding a phone that works for you.
Exactly.
Not one that tells you how to live your life.
Yeah. And I think that the U20 5G, with its, unique focus on audio and macro photography, it's a good reminder that there are still phones out there trying to be different.
Right.
Trying to cater to like specific interests.
Like they're saying, hey, if you're serious about this stuff, we got a phone for you.
And for the right person, that can be really appealing.
Yeah. It's like finding that, hidden gem.
Yeah, exactly. Something that just speaks to, your individual needs.
For sure.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the HTC U20 5G, we want to leave you with this thought. Don't be afraid to explore, Look beyond the big names and all the flashy marketing campaigns.
Yeah, shop around.
Yeah. There's a whole world of phones out there.
There is.
Each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So take some time to think about what you really want in a phone, What features are important to you? What kind of experience are you looking for?
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to try something new.
Yeah, you never know what you might find.
You might just discover a phone that you absolutely love.
Right.
A phone that matches your, unique style and personality.
Yeah.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep an open mind.
That's great advice.
The perfect phone for you is out there.
Happy hunting.
We'll see you next time.